Hello, my name is Mary Mack, and I'm the Executive Director of ACEDS, the Association of Certified eDiscovery Specialists. And I want to welcome you to the ACEDS webinar channel and to our wonderful series, which is our Legal Tech Jumpstart. And we've invited our affiliates to give our ACEDS community a sneak peek of what they'll be showing at Legal Tech New York, Legal Week New York. And you get to enjoy the demo and a discussion without having to have all the noise of the exhibit floor and trying to look over somebody's shoulder. So in the comfort of your own office, in the comfort of your own home, take a look at what our wonderful affiliate ZyLAB will be showing at Legal Week. As always, your questions are welcome. The Q&A panel down at the bottom, fire them off. I will serve them up to Jan, who is one of the presenters. So, and then Jeffrey, who is also one of the presenters. They are going to show the ZyLAB ONE eDiscovery SaaS solution. The one platform everyone is switching to is the tagline here. Full disclosure, ZyLAB is my alma mater in a certain sense. We worked together for about 5 years before I joined ZyLAB. So let me tell you a little bit about our speakers. I referred, everybody knows Johannes Scholtes, known as affectionately as Jan Scholtes. Jan was one of the first movers in the legal space to organize and index information. I know I used ZyIndex way back in the day. Some of you may have, or maybe some of your grandparents have. Jan, he is the Chairman, Chief Strategy Officer of ZyLAB and the holder of the vision. Prior to ZyLAB, Jan was a lieutenant in the Intelligence Department of the Royal Dutch Navy. He's got a Master of Science degree in Computer Science from Delft and a PhD in Computational Linguistics from the University of Amsterdam, something he did also as a very, very early adopter. And as of 2008, so here we are in the decade of text mining, he is the extraordinary chair in text mining in the Department of Knowledge Engineering at the University of Maastricht. We also have, who will be doing the demo, Jeffrey Wolff. And Jeffrey is an eDiscovery director at ZyLAB that I had the pleasure of working with. And I hear tell, there are some rumors that Jeffrey will soon have some initials after his name. So he joined ZyLAB in 2015. He's very, very deep, a couple decades of experience in information systems, enterprise software. He's done solution architecture, design, implementation for federal Department of Defense, very high standards, as well as Fortune 1000 corporations. He's got a specialty in SharePoint, enterprise search solutions. So I think what you'll see is something that is deep technical and also very, very applicable to our legal and eDiscovery environment. And besides that, ZyLAB is located, headquarters, dual located in Amsterdam and McLean. And as such, they've got some trends to share with us around legal moving into artificial intelligence, having instead of Boolean only search, machine learning being the new search, eDiscovery technology moving beyond litigation. How do you apply this in different use cases? My favorite, and I'll be quizzing you on this, Jan. The GDPR is Europe's revenge for the FCPA, and I think you may be talking about the extraterritoriality of it all. Cloud.
Absolutely.
And, pardon me?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're right. We'll keep that for later. Yep.
Well, yep, and then the increasing importance of eDiscovery in the Benelux area. And to that point, I hope you'll be talking a little bit about how ZyLAB is going to anchor a chapter in the Benelux area that will join our UK chapter in that area of the world to to create community connected and career opportunities for our SEDS folks. So moving into the presentation proper, Jan, what do you mean when you say the modern legal professional needs artificial intelligence? Shouldn't we be more afraid of artificial intelligence?
No, we strongly believe that artificial intelligence today is what the word processor was to lawyers 25 years ago. It's really an extension of the lawyers. It's an extension of the modern legal professional, where we using typewriters and typex and carbon copy and all that kind of ancient analog tools 25 years ago. We removed them. We all understand now that that has been a major benefit to the profession. We're all much more productive, and nobody wants to go back to the old times. I think that's what artificial intelligence is actually doing. Where for many years, artificial intelligence made a lot of promises, but it didn't deliver. I think in the last 5 years in the legal space, artificial intelligence is absolutely delivering in a number of key areas. Not in all of them, and some of them there's still a little bit of overselling and a little bit of technology push, sometimes a bit too aggressive. But in a number of fields, especially related to document handling and document review and processing and analyzing data, adding additional information to data, enriching the content of data, machine translation, dealing with multimedia, audio recordings, artificial intelligence is absolutely helping us. Do you agree with that?
I do. It was fascinating to me when I was learning about how image recognition is actually was leveraging an AI in order to do those kind of functions, that we were already using AI and we just didn't even know it.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. OCR, optical character recognition, in the 80s was absolutely artificial intelligence, and many of the algorithms and pattern recognition and machine learning principles we used in those days, we do exactly the same today with document content. So I believe that the ever-growing volume of data, the complexity of the legal profession, the enormous amount of case law that it's like even impossible to read all the new case law. We need computers and artificial intelligence enabled, or computers using artificial intelligence to help the modern legal professional to keep up with all that information and to increase the speed of their work, but also increase the quality. Because what we see over and over is that when our clients start using artificial intelligence techniques, they're not only faster, but they're also doing a much better job. They make less errors, and I think the combination of a AI-enabled computer with a human being in tandem, where they assist each other, and the computer is doing the boring work, and the human is doing the smart, strategically important, relevant legal work. You have a very, very powerful combination, and we'll discuss a couple of other examples in the rest of this slide deck. Okay, one of the examples is machine learning as the new search. We've been using machine learning now for several years for predictive coding, but we've seen many users outside of the legal space using machine learning as the new search, where they grab a couple of documents by using Boolean search, and then they train classifiers based on those documents, and they use those classifiers to retrieve more relevant documents. And we see that they can very, very easily boost recall in cases where the user is required to find as many relevant documents as possible, such as in regulatory requests. And one of the major advantages over the speed and the quality is that the reviewers don't have to understand very complex Boolean search query language. And we did a couple of tests where we had somebody who was very, very capable of using, for instance, the ZyLAB search query, which is way beyond Boolean search, but there's a whole bunch of different search techniques that this particular individual used to find a particular certain type of documents. And then in parallel, we had a very unknowledgeable, unskilled user using machine learning to find similar documents. And not only was the untrained user faster, but the user also found more relevant documents. And this is a major advantage of machine learning when used in a search environment. In addition, we see that with this approach and by using the best practices from the world of technology-assisted review, it is also possible for these users to precisely measure the recall of the relevant documents. So when you are dealing with a regulatory agency or with another party, you can say, well, it's very probable that I found probably 90 or 85 or between 80 and 90% of all the relevant documents. And what we see is that this is a very valuable additional asset, in addition to the fact that by using machine learning as an extension for search, we see that even if you have like the best lawyers or attorneys or searchers search relevant documents, in almost all practical use cases, we find 2 to 3 times more relevant documents when using machine learning. Okay, the other development which we see is that eDiscovery clearly moved beyond litigation. Litigation is still very important, but increasingly complex legislation, increasingly more aggressive regulatory regulators, stricter rules for privacy and security, and also more requirements, higher requirements for corporations. To deal with all these, I've been using eDiscovery in different use cases. The most known one is also for the Public Records Acts and Freedom of Information Acts, where eDiscovery technology is now more or less taking over the traditional way, especially related to the need to redact and withhold potentially privileged or other documents which might harm the organization disclosing them, or protecting the privacy or security of individuals that are named in those documents. Answering regulatory requests is often the largest and most time-consuming part for eDiscovery. Regulatory requests often are followed by internal or other investigations, which all use eDiscovery technology. A new one that we saw recently was the preparation of virtual data rooms in case of M&A activity, where M&A activity can be considered to be a voluntary eDiscovery project when a company is trying to sell itself for parts of the assets. And that's where eDiscovery can really help one to collect all the data relevant for the virtual data room, and also to check if it's complete and to check if there are no potential red flags that need to be addressed before the virtual data room is opened for any third parties. And of course, very hot these days, cybersecurity related investigations whenever there has been a data breach. Now, GDPR is coming up, May 2018. And we all know by now, all the different webinars, that it doesn't really matter if you're a European company or not. If you are dealing with personal data of any of your subjects, then you need to be compliant with the GDPR and all the different implementations of the GDPR in the different European countries. It's a pretty strict regulation with very high fines, and there will also be very strict enforcement. And this is where when we were asked for a number of a number of predictions or visionary statements, this was the one that came to mind. because FCPA has been a huge burden for European companies. Like you said, Mary, there's been the United States have been very successful exporting aspects of the legal system into jurisdictions outside of the United States, and FCPA is the number one. A lot of companies that are active in the U.S. market have been convicted for violations of the FCPA they did outside of Europe or outside of the United States. And of course, United States government and companies felt that the FCPA was there to protect them and to make sure that there's a fair level playing field and that everybody can compete by using the same rules, and that bribery and all these other things should be avoided. What we see now is that the way how the GDPR is constructed is in such a way that it is now very possible for European companies to enforce the European privacy and data protection regulations outside of the European borders. And I think that there are many North American companies that collect an awful lot of data about European suspects, that they will have serious problems being and becoming compliant with this regulation. A lot of standard practices like checkboxes like I agree and 50 pages of legal text, and then you have to click I agree before one continues using certain type of technology are no longer acceptable. And there's a lot of other changes which directly address these kind of practices. So that's my prediction. What do you think, Mary?
Yeah, I've heard everything from hyperbole that everybody's going to be fined 4% of their gross turnover or gross revenue to let's wait and see. We don't think this is really going to be enforced, or the fines will be that big to deter activity. So I've heard both sides. My sense is that starting a few years ago, especially with the Snowden revelations, that Europe and the EU is quite serious about protecting the privacy of your citizens, and I expect that there will be enforcement, and probably some show enforcement in the beginning.
Yeah, and it probably also depends on the country. Certain countries will take this more seriously than other countries. There's of course 26 countries or 27, depending on how you count, and that's the Netherlands, Germany, France take it very, very seriously. Cyprus, Malta are a little bit less active at this moment from what we can see, but we have to wait. I agree with you. The UK Bribery Act several years ago, everybody was very nervous about, and I think still to today, the highest fine that has been signed was like £2,000. So a lot of fuss there for not too many things. But GDPR, we'll see if my prediction is right. We'll see it next year when we have a similar webinar, and then we can go back to today's predictions. The practical impact of the GDPR on eDiscovery is that whenever there's going to be data which has to be transferred from the European Union to a civil party or a regulatory agency outside of the European Union, data has to be, personal information has to be either anonymized or pseudonymized. We're still practicing on that word. But also for M&A, if there's a data room which contains personal information, before the data room is opened for any potential bidders, data has to be anonymized or pseudonymized. And that's something which a lot of parties have not thought about. Now, where is this coming from, this anonymization or pseudonymization? Well, pseudonymization is something which is actually encouraged by the GDPR because some parties really need data, personal data, in order to do their job. For instance, the tax authorities need to know your name and all your details in order to check your your tax returns. There are some cases where you really don't need to know anything. You can just black it out and redact it and anonymize it. But there's also kind of data where you need to still be able to, at a certain moment in time, link it to a particular data subject. And this can be the case of a regulatory investigation, where the regulatory agencies would like to investigate a certain violation of rules, and then they would like to, at a certain moment, if I identify that a certain individual has done something wrong. They don't need to know all the names of all the individuals, but if you, for instance, replace them with like individual 1, 2, 3, or 4, they can say, well, now we're pretty sure that individual 4 is the one that has driven all this fraud or this non-compliance, and therefore we would now like to know who this individual 4 actually is. And this is something where the GDPR encourages to pseudonymize the data in order to make sure that whenever there is a breach of data, the names and all the other information about the people is not right away leaked. The way how it looks in the ZyLAB software is that in the case of redactions, we just blacken them, which is the one in the bottom, and the other ones, names are just replaced by numbers. And then the table with the references to those individuals is stored safely somewhere else or encrypted. And then whenever we need to know who is a particular individual, we can then decide to disclose that to a requesting party. The other trend we see is that we're all in the cloud now, not only software-wise, but also data-wise. Now, data-wise, we all know that we're generating an awful lot of information, and the cloud is winning it from on-premises installations. But also, eDiscovery software is more and more used from cloud platforms. Mid-2016, we were the first to deliver eDiscovery on the Microsoft Azure platform, which brings us many advantages from a scalability point of view. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. But we also see that there's more and more automation in eDiscovery software, which make the SaaS-based eDiscovery platforms more capable of do-it-yourself without the need for constant managed services. And I think that's a direction where the market is definitely aiming at. Where we want to enable, at least that's one of the goals we have at ZyLAB, we want to enable our users to do as much themselves by using automation from, of course, the AI techniques that I mentioned before, in order to process and analyze and review data as efficiently as possible. Now, why Azure for eDiscovery? Now, one of the problems in eDiscovery we've seen is that you never know in advance how much data you have or what type of data you have and what type of processing or analytics one needs. You also don't know exactly what type of workflow iterations you have. So one needs a very intelligent load balancing and resource allocation on the one hand, but on the other hand, you also need to be able to deal with this data wave, and you need to be able to scale up and scale down without too high costs, because you can never anticipate for enough hardware for your peak moments. So it's going to be very expensive if you have to buy all the hardware so you can process enormous amounts of data for this one case a year where you need to make the deadlines, and then the rest of the year this hardware is doing nothing. Now, what we can do with Azure and the ZyLAB ONE platform is that we can dynamically spin on and spin off machines, which effectively means that if you spin them on, you pay for them, and if you spin them off, you don't pay for them. And we can do this without the need to reinstall the software or to redeploy any of the data in an environment or in a case. And this has allowed us in cases where we had very strict deadlines and we couldn't make the deadline with the available resources. We've been able to scale up by adding like 50 or 100 servers in some cases. and then for a couple of days or maybe just a day, and especially when you have a lot of data that needs to be OCR'd, or if OCR is very CPU intensive, or if you have a lot of PSTs that need to be unpacked, or you suddenly unpack a number of zip files and you get 10 times more data which you didn't anticipate, or you have to use machine translation or audio search or any kind of analytics that require a lot of data, then this is a very, very powerful tool. What we can also do in Azure is that at a very reasonable cost, we can provide high availability, where we can have a data center in multiple regions, where region 1 in this case is active and region 2 is standby. And by using this, we can, by using the geo-replication facilities in Azure, we can actually provide 99.5% availability, which is more or less the standard these days in the United States, at very reasonable cost. Okay, Mary, your favorite topic here. The importance of eDiscovery in Europe is continuously increasing. Now, we've decided to start the ACEDS Benelux Chapter, and of course we have to celebrate that with a nice party in a traditional Dutch pub, which is Café Wildschut, for anybody from the Benelux who's listening right now, in the middle of Amsterdam. And yeah, we've already had a lot of sign-ups and a lot of enthusiasm. So we're really hoping to bring the level of eDiscovery specialists to the next professional level. And you're kindly invited, Mary, if you want to come over January 25th, just before you fly over for New York. You're more than welcome.
Well, I have been waiting for my personal invitation to come to.
Yeah, there's a straight flight, straight connection from Portland to Amsterdam, and then there's another one for New York. You will be a little bit jet lagged, but okay.
Well, maybe the next one, and we're very grateful for you and Anna Lore and Daniel and everybody at ZyLAB that's certified, and I understand Rutger as well.
Yep.
That you are going to anchor this chapter and gather your community. It's fantastic.
Yep.
Thank
you.
We
have a lot of interest from outside of ZyLAB already, and we already planned a couple of very exciting activities in February, but we'll make more. We'll let everybody know as soon at the official launch what we're going to do. And we have a lot of great ideas. And I think it's very important that we get more certified people here in Europe. So, yeah, everybody is doing eDiscovery at the same quality level. And I think that will benefit the entire industry. Okay. The demo, we're going to show a couple of things. Jeff, I want to hand it over to you.
Thanks, Jan. I'm excited to present to you today the ZyLAB ONE SAS platform. Just a few things about what I'll cover in the demonstration of the software. We won't actually demonstrate the direct collection capability from Office 365. However, we do have the ability to collect from O365 and other cloud sources, and this will be available very shortly in the product as a self-service function. But right now you are able to upload data directly through the web browser interface and have that data automatically processed. And that processing is deep eDiscovery level processing. So when we talk about getting the data ready for review, we are unpacking all container objects, opening all archives and compressed volumes. We are taking PST files and opening up the messages inside and the attachments inside those. Any zips that might be attached to emails are opened up. Any documents that are not automatically or natively readable can be automatically OCR'd as part of that process. That's a standard thing we do. We also then can deduplicate the data as well. And additionally, we can add professional text mining to extract entity information like people, places, and organizations as well out of the full text. Most people use the ZyLAB product for early case assessment to be able to get a very quick understanding of the data set that they've processed. And I'll show you a little bit of our new review dashboard that helps with that. But also the AI tools and other review acceleration tools that we have, including a rules engine for auto-classifying content, really help increase the speed at which reviewers can get through their data sets and cull down large data sets that they might then provide to outside counsel for further review. So without any additional time, let's go ahead and switch over to the live software environment here. What you're seeing right now is the ZyLAB SaaS platform. This is the legal review interface. And at this point, when I log in, I've already logged into the system, but when I log in, it shows me the matters that I have access to. We do restrict by security permission matters, so your ZyLAB administrator can set up certain user groups or certain users that can access some of the matters in your system, but not all of them, or certain matters. You can pick and choose that information. Once I actually select a matter, the permissions get much more granular with inside that matter, so I can pick and choose the functionality that I want to provide to a particular user. But you'll notice that also I have the ability here, because I'm an admin user, I have the ability to create matters. And creating a new matter in ZyLAB SaaS couldn't be easier. I literally just type the name of the matter and select a processing template. And then when I hit save, that would create a new instance for me. Once that instance is populated, I can actually go and add data to that matter. So for example, if I click on an existing matter here and I go to my upload function on the navigation menu over here on the right, up the navigation the upload screen will appear, and you can see that right in front of you right now. It shows me the status of past jobs that I've already processed in this matter. And I can drag and drop zips, PST files, any data type. In fact, we support over 600 different file formats that we can process natively. And those can be dragged and dropped right to this interface or selected right from the Windows browser. And we will process that data automatically as soon as it finishes uploading to the ZyLAB servers in Microsoft Azure. Once that data is processed, I can go and take a look. I'll go back to the home screen here, and I can jump over to my overview. So I have this data set already processed. This is about 90,000 documents of the Enron data set. And if I click the overview screen, I can see some basic information about my matter. This is our new matter overview. And it gives me a nice starting point. Or if I'm a litigation support manager and I want to see how the matter is going, this is a great interface to go to. So I can see the number of documents and families. I can see how many custodians are involved in the case and how many sources of data were utilized. I can also see at a glance how the review is going. So I can see that only 16% of the review has been completed at this point. Tag distribution, I have that here, and I can click show more and see all the tags and how many have been applied to every document type. These are live links that will take me directly to the documents that meet that tag set. This new timeline feature I find really helpful. So I can drill down into any date format within this matter. Email send time is particularly of importance to me, so I have that one up. And it will show me a breakdown of the emails in this matter. And if I, of course, did last modified date, I could see the same thing for loose files. But here I can see most of my documents are in 2001. If I click on 2001, I can see a breakdown by month. I have a lot of documents in October. Let's take a look at that. And if I click that, that shows me a breakdown by day. And if I click that through to one of the days, that would actually take me directly to that list of documents for that specific day. Also, I have down here some graphs, additional graphs to review it, and this is showing me information about top review category tags or top custodians, number of custodians with the largest amounts of data. These are configurable tiles, so I can change the field that it's displaying. So if there are other things I want to see, I can do that as well. Let's take a look at the data set though. So I'm going to go over back to the matter menu, and I'm going to select browse. And that's going to bring us to our facet screen. So this is one of the first screens that most review users interact with in the ZyLAB ONE platform. And it is really designed to be an easy visual representation of your data set. So you can see here I have a number of facets. And if I scroll down, I can see even more facets. I can pick and choose the facets that I want to visualize. So if I'm not interested in the custodian or source of this data, I can just click on them and they'll close. They'll scroll to the bottom here, and they're always available for me to reopen. The facets themselves are customizable. So for any particular matter, you can decide what facets you want to make available to your users at the time you process the data. So here they can be based on simple things like custodian and source. They can be analysis types facets, like we've identified what file types are in the matter during processing. You can also see KPIs or dashboard type of facets, like show me how many documents have been reviewed, and of those 14,000 that have been reviewed, how do they break down by category? You can see I've split up a bunch of the documents in this matter for review by 5 different reviewers, and I can see how their progress are on those sub batches. I like to drill down even further, and I can see things like here are some email information, metrics on email sent in this matter. So I can see breakdown by email recipient and email sender domain, as well as send year and send month. There's a lot of work that happens during the processing phase that populates the metadata that these facets use. So in particular, for example, I have this confidential reason and privilege reason. We have in ZyLab a concept of auto classification rules, and that allows us to pre-tag content for the reviewer before they even come into the review environment for the first time. What I mean by that is, for example, I have PII and PHI, personal identifiable information, personal health information. ZyLab is capable of recognizing patterns, not just keywords or names or email addresses, but actually patterns of numbers and letters using regular expressions. So for example, if I wanted to tell ZyLab, anytime you find a US Social Security number format, or a US passport, or a state driver's license number, or an account number, all you have to do is supply ZyLab with the appropriate format, a lot of which we have pre-built in the system for you, and you go ahead and tag that document, let's say confidential for PII. Or if it mentions any one of a list of diseases, go ahead and tag that document confidential for PHI. We can actually take that a step further and auto-redact information based on those same rules. So a lot of power behind this. I can also use the facet screen to navigate through data. So for example, I can click Darren Farmer. I only want to see his emails. I only want to see the ones that were marked proprietary. And I'm only interested in the ones that came from enron.com. So with a few clicks, I've got this breadcrumb trail up here, and I've narrowed my 91,000 documents down to, in this case, 11. And at which point I could always switch over to my results set over here and see the list of documents there. Really quick way to get at data without even having to do a search. Of course, search is really important in any eDiscovery product, and ZyLab is no exception. We've built our search engine from the ground up. It is our indexing engine and our search interface. We do not plug in a third-party tool here. So we have a lot of features that a lot of other eDiscovery products might not even have in their system. And several I know that they do not have. So I can go up to my saved search list, and I can pull up searches that I've reused. I have a number here that I like to demonstrate. So I can start with a simple keyword search like Enron within 10 of lay. That's a basic full text and proximity search. And of course, my result set here has been narrowed, and see the facets reflect that accordingly. But if I go to a more sophisticated search, like let's do the advanced search here. Now, I wanted a smaller subset of documents. So in addition to Enron within 10 of lay, I've added and stock asterisk or price tilde 2 and a number between 15,000 and 16,000. So right there, ZyLab is using full text, proximity, Boolean, wildcards, fuzzy searching near similar searching, because I want to account for any either spelling mistakes or OCR mistakes, and a number range function. This one's fairly unique to ZyLab. We actually, when we tokenize numbers during the processing phase, we actually tokenize them as values. Most other systems will just save them as text like anything else. So you could search for the number 15,000 or the number 16,000, but you can't search for a number in between. This comes up really, really a lot during forensic accounting reviews. Anytime you need to look for threshold or above and below a threshold, this is a really useful feature. Of course, in addition to that, we have things like quorum search, which is also fairly unique. So rather than doing a page-long Boolean statement of ORs, I can just tell the system I want the document that has any three of the following, and then a long list of terms separated by commas. So you can see that's a great way to get at data. I mentioned the ability to do regular expression pattern matching. Here's an example of that using the Social Security number. So you can see this is the standard expression for a U.S. Social Security number, and I've actually enhanced this, reduced the number of false positives by prefacing it with it has to be within 2 words of Social Security or SSN. Let's take a look at a threaded email conversation. Obviously, I don't have a chance to show you every feature in ZyLab during this short demonstration, but I hope to give you a nice overview of the system. So here I'm running a search for ABD Limited and Robert or load break. I'm going to switch over to my document list, and you can see I have a number of documents here. This is in what we call the family tree view, so I can see the attachments in line of the document. Here's an email message with its zip and then a PDF attachment. And I can also switch between flat list and family trees. So for example, if I want to see this in a flat list, I can just easily do that. And you can see it's much easier to visualize. I particularly like the family tree approach because I like to see how the documents are related to each other. From this interface, the search results screen, I also have the ability to do a number of other things. So I'm able to bulk tag documents. I can, rather than just opening them up one at a time, if I wanted to a bulk tag based on my search results and apply it, I can do that really easily from this interface. I can create those review batches I mentioned during the facet screen. So I can run a query and then based on the results, break that up into a number of sub batches. I can also do a batch download. So if somebody says, hey, I need to take a bunch of documents offline, assuming I have permission to do so, and you do have to have permission to use a number of these features, then I can perform a batch download right from the screen. And also I can run reports. This one I wanted to highlight. So if I wanted to produce a privilege log or a redactions log, or if somebody just said, hey, can you print out a list of all the documents that correspond to this query in this matter, I can run my search, I can show the columns that I want to visualize, and then I can hit reports and export to CSV, and that will just export me right through the browser, a CSV file that will contain all of this tabular information in exactly the format you see here. And this is actually a drag and drop interface, so I can actually literally drag a column around and reorder it the way I want it to resize it, add new columns if I want to see something in addition to what's already there. So maybe I want to see last modified date, so we can go look at that here. Last modified, there we go. And so I can add that to the column as well. I can reorder this really easy, and that will be saved as my user preference the next time I go into this matter, so I never have to make that update again. But I do have custom views that let me switch quickly between different approaches looking at the data, and those can be shared between users, which is really nice. Let's go ahead and take a look at one of these documents in our document view. So here we are in the document view screen. As I said, we process 600 different file types through the system. So when we get to the document review, because this is an HTML5 representation, we are imaging the document on the fly for the user. So that means you do not need any native application to the data that you're looking at. In this case, this is an MSG file. We do not need to have an Outlook or any other email client on my desktop. I can do everything through my browser. So this works a little bit about that. This is a responsive design, meaning that no matter what size real estate I have on my monitor, I can the application will resize itself accordingly. This works on any browser, Mac or Windows. It will also even work on mobile tablets. It works very nicely on the Apple iPad. So that's really very handy and really allows us to be browser agnostic. You can see I clicked the first search result in my search list. Oh, and by the way, along those same lines, if you have multiple monitors on your desk, you can leave one tab open to your document view and leave another tab open to your search results, which a lot of reviewers find very useful. I clicked my first search result. This says 1 of 10, but notice it brought me to the middle of the conversation. And this is our threaded conversation view. So ZyLab kind of painstakingly reconstructs the message threading of your emails from the data that is processed. And even to the point of showing you that a message is missing from what was processed. So we can see that Daniel replied to a message, but the message he replied to was never uploaded as part of this matter. So we're letting you know that message is missing. In addition, you can see the document family. So this email has attachments. The zip is grayed out because there's nothing in the zip itself is not viewable, but the data inside the zip is. So I have an Excel spreadsheet which I can jump over to, as well as a PDF that was included. And you'll notice that the PDF actually shows me a 2 icon up here. That means there are 2 duplicates of this document. And if I click on it, it shows me the different metadata between the 2 different copies. So there are 2 exact duplicates by hash value that we've identified during processing, but they have different metadata, and you may want to address that. In addition, if I go back to the email, I can jump around. So right now I'm in this thread, but if I want to jump to the beginning of the conversation thread, I can just click there. Really easy to get around. Over here are my properties of the document. The image itself of the document, I can zoom in, zoom out. So I can manipulate the document. I can rotate the document, which is really handy if you're looking at real estate or CAD documents. Notice I've got my responsive tag and my issue codes tag here. Those were pre-applied for me. Our tagging workflow is really sophisticated. You can apply permissions by tag. You can limit people to see certain tags or use certain tags. Tags have logic behind them. So for example, if I remove both of these tags, this document is now not reviewed. I have responsive and not responsive. I apply responsive, and not responsive goes away because it can't be both. But now I have other tags that I didn't have before. And I can apply tags with a single select field or a multi-select field with custom values. So a lot of flexibility on the tags that I can use. You notice here, John Zaffarelli's name is auto-redacted. I can tell that if I double click on it, I can see over here, executive communication auto-redaction. So his name has been auto-redacted and across the whole matter. I didn't have to manually do that. This is an example of a manual redaction. I can click on it and see that this has been given the US FOIA code B6 for personal privacy. It tells you who applied the redaction and when, and I can modify it because I have permission to do so. I can also see underneath the redaction because we haven't yet produced this document and burned the redaction in. Yellow is our keyword highlighting. Green is persistent keyword highlighting. So the yellow represents my search hits, right? What I actually searched for. And the green represents persist optional keyword groups that I can display to the user as being important to the matter, but that they may not have decided to click on. So of course I've got manual, you saw my manual redactions code, my redaction here. I can also annotate the document. So this is an example of an annotation right here. I'll go ahead and just finish this. This is my redaction. Excuse me, this is my annotation. Greg, should we redact this? That's just a note between reviewers, and it doesn't export from the system, so it's a great way to provide information between reviewers. Speaking of communication between reviewers, this URL up here, if I copy that and paste that into a messaging application within my organization, either a chat or an email, that will take whoever receives the message and clicks on the link, will take them directly to this document, assuming, of course, they have not only credentials to ZyLAB ONE SAS, but also permission to this matter and this document. And we can actually restrict users by even individual documents if we so choose. That being said, let me just really briefly switch over to the assisted review module. I just want to show you that so you have a chance to see it. Over here on our navigation menu, I have the assisted review functionality. So this, of course, is the artificial intelligence that I was speaking about. This is really the future of review, is employing more AI in predictive coding as well as clustering and topic modeling. So here you can see I have the ability to create projects associated with my Enron dataset matter. And my project C over here, let's go over to that one. This deals with travel. So I was looking for all the documents in the Enron dataset in my 91,000 documents that deal with travel, that address travel schedules and travel itineraries. So I created a number of training batches in ZyLAB. I can do that with or without a validation set. And I went through several rounds of training. You can see I went through 4 rounds of training. And I manually reviewed 117 documents. And the way I do that is I ask ZyLAB for a batch size. I can say 25 documents at a time. It gives me 25 documents, and it gives me specific tags for this issue, responsive or not responsive. I then tag each of the documents in the training set. It's a binary classifier, so it has to be one or the other. And then based on that training set, it then gives me another training batch, and it gets smarter each time I go through the training. So you can see I went through 4 rounds of training, completing 117 documents that I looked at. And out of those documents, 44 were responsive. Then based on that, my training statistics say, hey, I was already at 80% recall and precision, which you can see on my graphs over here. And I said, that's great, that's good enough, let's go ahead and classify the remaining documents. I hit that, and the system went out and found 6,051 other responsive documents based on its machine learning. So I have to do very little actual manual review, and it found a lot of responsive documents for me, far more than I probably would have found on my own. In addition, we have this topic modeling function, which allows us to cluster the concepts in the matter together and let you see the most important concepts and use those. You can click on a wheel, a wedge of the wheel, and drill in. You can also use this to create predictive coding issues or begin your investigation. The topic wheel is actually a really good place for investigators who don't know what's in their data set to begin their investigation. So that's it. This is a very brief overview of the ZyLAB ONE SAS platform. Thank you, and I'll kind of switch it back to Rian. You can finish us out.
If you couldn't see it or went a little bit too fast or the resolution of the screens was not as good as you hoped, then you can download some of the ebooks that we have, which will give you an overview of this technology that we use. And definitely, if you do have time, you should definitely come by and set up a time for a meeting and a demonstration at our legal tech booth. Where we are at booth 2101, and if you register, you are 100% sure that there will be somebody ready for you and your colleagues to provide you with a demo. Mary, any additional questions?
Yes. Can you explain a little bit more about what is available in the professional text mining?
Yeah,
you mentioned amounts and people.
Yeah.
So there's
go ahead. You do it, Jeff.
Oh, thanks, Jan. I was just going to say there are roughly 30 different entity types, Mary, that can be extracted from documents. The most common ones are things like people, places, organizations, locations, currencies, addresses. But there's like a list of over 30 different entity types.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I think we're getting to the top of the hour, and I want to remind everyone, ZyLab's booth is 2101, I believe. Ours is 1601, so we will be inside of the exhibit hall. The ACEDS events, though, are available to anybody who may have or doesn't have an exhibit hall pass. So other than one panel that I'm on with David Horrigan and a lovely group of folks, we are inviting our ACEDS community to our events without necessarily having to have a legal tech pass. Jan, does ZyLab have something for folks that may want to join you on the exhibit hall floor?
Yeah, well, you can. What you can do is you can get in touch with Annalore or just go to our website, and then we'll see how we can help you. Just go to zylab.com/legaltech, and if you don't have an exhibit pass, we'll work out something, or we'll organize a demo outside of the Legal Tech convention somewhere else where we can show you our technology.
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you very much, Jeffrey. Thank you for powering through. We had some issues. The issues were on our end, the ACEDS end, not on the ZyLab end. I want to make that clear. And we'll be sending out an email to you with the recorded version, and we'll see what we can do about cleaning some of that up so that you get a smoother experience. And definitely reach out to ZyLab, reach out to us. If you haven't received your newsletter today, you've probably unsubscribed in the past or haven't signed up for it. do that. We just sent one out with a whole listing of our events at Legal Tech in New York. And we'll be continuing our run-up, our January jumpstart to Legal Tech. Next week, we'll have another series of webinars. And we're very grateful for our affiliates like ZyLAB who are willing to give us a sneak peek before we get to New York City. And we're very grateful to you, our listeners and the participants in the webinar for giving us the gift of your attention. So looking forward to seeing all of you in New York or on the Twitter chat we'll have afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.